My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Don't you love it when things are both easier and more affordable? Like when the rain washes your car for you. Or like when you save up to 10% by bundling your renters and auto insurance with USAA. Bundle with USAA and start saving. Get a quote today.
This week, you are in for an extra special episode because Chloe, our resident YPJ, your pregnancy and postnatal journey midwife, is joining with the wonderful Laura.
I know that there are loads of people that will benefit from listening to your birth story.
And it was good that we knew the day that we were going to go in. You know, I view that as a positive in the end, that we knew when we were going in for induction. In terms of the ward itself, I knew we were going to be there for some time.
Based on the information she had, she gave it to you, based on you being sort of 7 to 8 centimetres. And it might have been that you were then so relaxed that that just got you where you needed to be.
Hi, I'm Pip, and welcome to the Midwife Pip podcast, the home of expert information and real chats on all things pregnancy, birth, and beyond. This week, you are in for an extra special episode because Chloe, our resident YPJ, your pregnancy and postnatal journey midwife, is joining with the wonderful Laura. Laura is one of our YPJ members who joined us expecting her first baby and as a practicing psychotherapist was acutely aware of how many women go through pregnancy, birth and the postnatal experience lacking real, comprehensive expert around-the-clock support and as a result experience birth trauma that has lifelong impacts. Laura decided that wasn't the journey she wanted, so she joined us in YPJ and has had the most positive induction of labour experience. I have loved supporting Laura because when she knew she was going in for an induction and I checked in with how she was feeling, she was absolutely buzzing. She knew she had all the tools in her toolkit to have a really positive and empowered induction experience. And I know for so many expectant mums, induction is something that causes some sort of fear or anxiety or worry. And that was not the case for Laura because she was properly, expertly informed and supported every step of the way. So put your feet up wherever you might be and listen in to Chloe and Laura's wonderful conversation sharing Laura's journey.
So welcome everyone, thank you for joining us and thank you so much Laura for sharing your birth story this week because again I know that there are loads of people that will benefit from listening to your birth story and that I know that you're the type of birth in terms of induction can often invoke some fear. I think that's fair to say, like people get a bit anxious about induction. Obviously, we know that we're kind of, it's a form of intervention at that stage. And I think people kind of have a lot of like anxiety and worry around that. And obviously, Laura, you had a really, really positive experience with that. And so I'm really, really keen to share your experience. So what I like to do at the beginning is just give everyone a bit of a background in terms of your pregnancy and like how that went. And if you just tell us a little bit about yourself. So first baby.
Yeah, that's right. First baby and pregnancy was relatively straightforward. We conceived through IVF. And that's important to mention because we were consultant-led care, which impacted some of our decision making around sort of type of birth and where we were going to give birth. But pregnancy was fine, very sick up until about 16, 17 weeks. And sort of actually continued with the sickness on and off up until I gave birth, really. But other than that, it was absolutely fine. I joined YPJ because the community midwife care in my local area was just really stretched and therefore was really patchy. So I just wasn't getting what I needed. I had some quite difficult appointments, I'd say, where I tried to speak about a birth plan at sort of 28 weeks and got very little back. And I had an appointment where a midwife just didn't turn up, things like that. So I needed more. And I wasn't particularly scared about birth. I wasn't particularly anxious about it, but I was acutely aware that there was a lot that I didn't know. And I really, really wanted, I knew how important it was, and I really wanted to have a good experience. So that's why I joined YPJ.
And you joined us in your second trimester, is that right?
I did. I think it was about 25, 26 weeks. I think it was after that appointment where I tried to talk about my birth plan and got very little back. I thought I just need a bit more. So yeah.
Yeah, because we've had a few people joining us recently who are sort of second trimester onwards, and I keep, basically reiterating that we do get lots of people joining us at different stages, and still plenty of time to sort of get the most out of YPJ and sort of not to feel rushed or panicked that you're not, I think some people get to that point in pregnancy where, like you did, kind of you realise actually I've still got time to like make this a really good experience, and sort of acting at that point is really important. And I think it's safe to say that you joined us at a really good time, and you did get a lot out of the sort of build up towards your birth plan, didn't you? And really leaned into the support in your channel on Discord, which is really great. So talk to us a little bit about how you came to the decision to opt for an induction.
So originally I had in my head that I wanted spontaneous labour, that I wanted to give birth at the birthing centre, which is co-located in our hospital. So it's literally opposite the labour ward. But then I had my first growth scan and met with the consultants who said they tend, because it's an IVF pregnancy, they tend to induce on my due date at 40 weeks. And that really, really took me by surprise. I don't know why. Induction is just not something I'd ever considered. I thought it would be spontaneous labour. There was also a question mark for a long time over the position of my placenta. So in my head, I was either going to go into spontaneous labour or I was going to have a cesarean. They found out eventually that. Sorry, go on.
If your placenta didn't move, because it was low lying, wasn't it? Basically,
it was.
And then you had to have a scan, didn't you, to check, and then you found out that it had actually moved.
Yeah, that's right, and that happened quite late on. So we're umming and ahhing about sort of what was going to happen and what we were going to do. But yeah, I met with the consultant. She said, your placenta's moved, so what we recommend is to induce at 40 weeks, and that was surprising and made me quite anxious because I'd heard a lot about induction, but also it meant with my hospital that meant I couldn't give birth at the birthing centre. I had to give birth on the labour ward, and again, for some reason in my head, that's something that I just really didn't want. So I reached out on Discord, we had a chat, I had a real wobble about it, and I just kind of put a lot of work then into looking at induction, really, really understanding the process of it. I went on Pip's website as well, and there was some sort of positive induction stories on there. Spoke to good, trustworthy people in my life as well, not people that were going to fill me with horror stories, and all the antenatal courses and things like that. I think there was a community clinic as well where induction was spoken about in quite a lot of depth. So just did lots and lots of research just to try to get myself into a bit of a better headspace about it.
And you really did do a proper pros and cons, didn't you? You really looked into what are the options, and what did they say to you in regards to why they were offering you induction at 40 weeks in terms of the background behind that?
They basically said they just wanted everything to go well. So in terms of sort of statistics and evidence base behind it, I couldn't really get much out of them, to be honest. But they just said, with it being an IVF pregnancy and our situation in particular was that if it didn't happen now, it probably wouldn't happen ever. They just err on the side of caution. And when the consultant said to me about induction at 40 weeks, my initial reaction was, no, we're not going to do that. And we ended up entering into a bit of a negotiation, really. I said, can you give me a bit more time? And she agreed to that. So we agreed to 5 more days. So we agreed to induction at 40 plus 5. And we agreed to a stretch and sweep at 39 weeks just to try to get things going. I also had a stretch and sweep at 40 plus 2, neither of which did a great deal. And if she agreed to the 5 extra days, she said, will you please give birth on the labour ward? So she said, you don't have to decide now. She's really good. She said, you don't have to decide, go away, have a think about it. We'll talk next time we come back. And me and Ian sat down, had a real long chat about it. And I chatted with both you and Pip about it. And we agreed to give birth on the labour ward.
We really went then, didn't we, with like, right, the action plan now needs to look like, how would a positive birth on labour ward look to you?
Yeah.
And what can we do now to, make that a comfortable situation? Not so that you have to say yes to it, but what would that look like to you? And can we implement that on the labour ward?
Yeah.
So that was when you started to really get creative about how you could make that positive. And I think once you'd got your head around that and started to put that plan into place, you were like, actually, I'm thinking about this and feeling good about it and positive about it. So what kind of things did you sort of think about in terms of, right, we got to induction date, we're going to go in, and you had real positive pants on, didn't you? You were like, right, let's do this. And you seemed excited, really excited.
Yeah.
My brand new book, Midwife Pip's Guide to a Positive Birth, is now available. So much more than a book, this is a guide that allows me to hold your hand through your birth preparation journey. With over a decade of experience and knowledge packed in to ensure you really are empowered in the way you deserve to achieve a positive birth, regardless of the twists and turns that crop up. Make sure that you get your hands on Midwife Pip's Guide to a Positive Birth book now and are empowered to have the birth experience that you deserve.
And it was good that we knew the day that we were going to go in. I view that as a positive in the end, that we knew when we were going in for induction. In terms of the ward itself, I knew we were going to be there for some time. I think, is it the antenatal ward? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, generally that's where you go for the before you go into labour, basically.
Yeah. So we downloaded films, TV series. We went for loads of walks. We, went for coffee, things like that. We almost like, I'm a therapist, so like an intervention we often use is activity planning for some people, and literally I use that with myself. I literally had like such a repertoire of activities that I could do. So there was that, and in terms of my birth preferences, I really leaned into the idea that it's just 4 walls. That's something that I was like a mantra in my head. It doesn't really matter where I am, whether it be the antenatal ward or the labour ward or cesarean, if it ends up going to that. I really, really tried to remind myself that I looked at the things that could go, that I could use regardless of the space that I was in. So that was literally what my birth preferences were.
Yeah, it was Ian, wasn't it, who in our wellbeing call, I loved his reference to that period of time just feeling like you're waiting in an airport. It was him. And I was like, that's so true, because it literally like the hospital does often feel like an airport, and you are just almost like waiting for a flight. You're waiting for something to happen, and it can feel really like slow almost, but it's exciting because it's that anticipation. Similarly to going on holiday, you're like just waiting, checking, and waiting for the next bit almost. And I was like, that's so true actually. But with that feeling comes like that anticipation and excitement. And again, it was like, it's like that positive kind of, you do feel like, just excited, don't you, to get going. So what did your induction look like? Because obviously, bear in mind, anyone that's listening to this that may potentially have an induction or consider that route, that every trust does things a little bit differently. So some trusts will do, if it's sort of safe to do so, if they deem it to be appropriate, they might do what they call an outpatient induction, where they'll offer like the initial part, which for most trusts is like putting a ProPess in, which is like the tampon that they use with the hormones, and they might send you home for 24 hours and then come back. You might have to come back in for monitoring. In the trust that I used to work in with Pip, that wasn't offered. It was an inpatient induction. You'd go in, and once you were in being induced, you'd stay in then until you had baby. So it does vary, and it's important to note that, because we want everyone to sort of ask the appropriate questions if that was something that they were to consider, so they know exactly what's offered in their trust. And also the types of things they offer with induction can vary slightly. But what did your induction look like, Laura?
So mine was an in-hospital stay. So once I went in, that was it. I was in until the baby arrived. So I went in on the Wednesday at 11, and by 12:30 they'd put the ProPess pessary in. And I had that in for 24 hours. Well, they checked me first, actually. They did an examination, and just to make sure that that was the right course of intervention. And they said, yes, let's go for it. So that's what we did. And that stayed in for 24 hours and gave me, I'd say it was like dual period pain. So I actually sent Ian home overnight because he's really tall, and he was just not going to sleep in them chairs. So and I just had a feeling that I wasn't going to have the baby overnight. So I said to him, just go home, get some sleep, come back really early. So he did. And then they checked me 12 hours later, and they said that I was 1 centimetre dilated. And they said to me, an experienced midwife could break your waters at this point, but they said it would be painful and it would be unpleasant, so let's not do that. Let's give you the dose of gel next.
Yeah.
So they took the pessary out. And just to say as well, I had paracetamol and codeine, and that worked really well. I got a really good sleep overnight. And then when I had the gel, they ran me a bath overnight, which was really lovely. It was literally like 4:30 in the morning. And they, a tip, they said to me, stay in the bath for as long as you can. They said, in terms of pain relief, they said, don't get in it for 10 minutes and get out. They said, have a good old soak in there for an hour and it will really help. And it did. I'm really pleased that I did that. So yeah, I had the 1 dose of the gel. I didn't do a great deal, really. I wasn't really much further forward. They said my cervix had softened a little bit, and I was like 1 centimetre sort of properly dilated. And then the night midwife, the other thing to say as well is the 6-hour gap. So I had the ProPess pessary, they took it out, then I had a 6-hour gap, then I had the gel, and then the night shift came.
Actually, so again, just noting that's like different. Again, in the trust that I used to work in, it would literally be a case of ProPess comes out, do an examination, and then if it's appropriate, the next one is the gel, which was frosting, and we'd go for it straight away with that. But it was that 6-hour time frame was what we were working with as well. So you would like have your Prostin, your gel.
Yes.
You'd have 6 hours later another examination at that stage, and very occasionally you might give another dose of the Prostin, but it generally it would be the one dose. But so they did a 6-hour period of sort of waiting and seeing before doing that, did they?
They did. And then they checked me after the second gel. They checked me after the first gel. And interestingly, they said, we're just going to go for it with the second dose of the gel, and we're going to double dose you. Okay. So I had that. I had that at 2:30 in the morning, and I'd sent Ian home again. And it got things going, I'd say, within about an hour, the double dose. So I didn't call them contractions because what I'd read was that your bump is meant to go hard, and you're meant to experience like a real tightening, and I didn't feel that at first. I just felt pain, I'd say. Just felt like a really, really dull, achy pain inside that kind of got more intense and then gradually graduated to sort of full-on contractions. So I rang in at four in the morning. I just said, you need to come back. I'm in a lot of pain. The other thing to say is I was quite sick throughout the whole process, and I had anti-sickness injections and they worked really, really well. So every morning when I woke up, I was vomiting quite a lot, but like I said, the anti-sickness worked really well. So yeah, so Ian got back about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was just fully in labour by that point. I was having contractions, they were really, really quite intense. And I have to say a lot of the things that I put in my birthing preferences around sort of like lower level pain management just went out the window.
Yeah.
So the
Fair
birthing
enough. And we've
home.
said in previous, like what you think you will need and what you actually need might be two very different things. But I think a lot of people feel that comfort knowing that they have that there as, a plan. And if
Yeah.
they need to sort of regroup and be like, right, what can I do before we go to the next step? Then they can kind of use that as reference, and it can be quite handy. But equally, it sounds like, and from when you were telling us as it was happening, things just progressed quickly at that stage.
Yeah.
So it was like, right, you were straight over to labour ward then at that point, weren't you? Were you there already when Ian came? Did he have to go to labour ward or
No.
transfer you round?
No, it took a bit of time. So because the second dose of gel, they wanted to examine me 6 hours later. So I was on the antenatal ward until 6 hours. So that would have been 8:30 in the morning. They examined me and they said, you are 3 centimeters dilated and your waters are bulging. And they said, we need to get you to the labour ward ASAP. And they could see I was in a lot of pain, so they gave me gas and air at that point as well. That really helped. And the other thing that really helped me was just movement. I couldn't sit still at all. So walking around, sitting on the toilet. I don't know why. I've heard that from a lot of women as well. I kept going into the bathroom, just sitting on the toilet.
You think
And
about the positions that we tell you,
yeah,
the best ones, that is basically that position. You're upright, you're kind of leaning forwards on the toilet,
yes,
you're mobile. Like that is a classic example of like the natural instinct that your body has to be in that position.
yeah,
Being on the toilet, being on a birthing ball, that really helps because you can lean on the bed. Like
yeah,
just being laid back, like you said, you can't sit still. You get like
yeah.
ants in your pants, you need to get up. So it's like your body naturally taking over and getting you in the position that you need to be in.
Yeah, and that was the other thing. I sat on a birthing ball and had my head on the bed, and I was just rocking back and forth like really gently, and that felt really lovely as well. And I started at that point. I started to time it. I was like, okay, these are contractions, and I started to time them, and they were a minute apart, and I just couldn't believe it. I just thought that is really, really quick. So by 10:30, the midwives came up from the labour ward to take me down, and I said to them at first, I said, how am I going to get there? And she said, well, you can walk or you can go in the wheelchair. And I said, yeah, I'll walk. I think I'll be able to walk. And let me tell you, by the time they turned up, I was walking nowhere. I sat on that wheelchair, wheeled me down, and I was really pleasantly surprised, to be honest. Like every trust, I'm sure, is different, hospital is different, but moving to the labour ward felt like quite a big deal. It was quite like, we were like, it's happening, here we go. And the room was really nice. It was really big and spacious, and there was birthing balls and mats, and there was a bath and all sorts of things that I could use. And they examined me straight away, and they said it was a conservative estimate, but I was 7 centimeters dilated by that point. So it happened really quickly.
Had your waters gone? Did we miss that bit? Or they were still
No.
bulging?
They're
Wow.
still bulging. So they went to break my waters, but I didn't feel a thing, and it was like a split second. She used the hook thing and sort of went to put it up, and they just went immediately. So they were absolutely ready to go. And I probably about 5-10 minutes later, I just felt an unbelievable urge to push.
Yeah.
And I had a trainee midwife who was absolutely brilliant, and I had a qualified midwife, and the qualified midwife had gone out of the room, and the trainee midwife said to me, "You're 9 centimeters." She said, "Can you just hold on and not push, because you could do yourself just a little bit of damage." So I then, about 5 minutes later, the qualified midwife came back into the room, and she looked and she said, "Yep, your baby's there. It's time to push."
So just
And
keeping you calm at that moment is super important, and she was totally right in that at that stage, if we can't say for sure that you are fully dilated, we'll encourage you to sort of breathe through that last build up to being fully dilated and in a position to start actively pushing. Obviously, people get these like involuntary urges to push, and we'll just try and encourage you to sort of breathe through at that stage, and that will just allow your body to sort of get where it needs to without like pushing against your cervix, basically. So she was totally right. And just touching on that, if anyone gets the opportunity to have a student midwife, I would always encourage it, because you, like, for example, as you just said, your midwife had left the room to go and do something, probably to go and get a delivery kit or to just go and get things ready.
it's the pethidine. She went to get the pethidine.
If you are lucky enough to have someone who will stay there with you, then that's amazing. If you get the opportunity to have a student midwife, then my personal advice would be to take it, because you tend to get that little bit of extra support there that you wouldn't necessarily get if you've got one person that has to nip in and out to go and make preparations. So she went to get your pethidine and then came back and said, "It's go time."
Yeah, pretty much. So she came back in, and actually, it's a bit of a blur, but she gave me the dose of pethidine, which if I could have my time again, I wouldn't have had, to be honest, because she gave me it, and then she examined me and she said, "Right, it's time to push." And I was high as a kite because of the pethidine. And to be honest, everyone's different, but I'd done all of that labour I'd done up until that point on gas and air, codeine, and paracetamol, and when I was pushing, I mean, I was either asleep, literally, or pushing for my life. So yeah, everyone's different though. So some people find it really helpful, but it didn't do a great deal for me, the pethidine.
It is really hard as well, because you don't know what that situation would have been like had you not have had it. So obviously we don't really want to ideally give pethidine too close to baby being born, and they probably would have been keeping a closer eye on Olivia when she was born, because she would have been feeling the effects of that as well. And I think probably had your midwife had made a decision to examine you before giving the pethidine, she might not have given it at that stage. But
a quick pause here, because I want to share a super important health tip from Nutricia, the sponsor of this week's episode. The first 1,000 days of your child's life, which is the 9 months of pregnancy and up to their second birthday, provide an incredible opportunity to support their gut health, which has a profound impact on all sorts of short and long-term health outcomes. Which means, as a pregnant or new mum listener, you are in an incredible time of opportunity. So here is a top tip. Let your little one get dirty and explore the great outdoors. There's a variety of beneficial bacteria and fungi that are present in the air, soil, and vegetation around us. These can colonize in the gut, increasing diversity of the microbes living there, and therefore improving gut health. Gut health matters for so many physical, developmental, and psychological health outcomes for our children. So here is to us helping them on their way to healthier, happier futures.
Based on the information she had, she gave it to you, based on you being sort of 7 to 8 centimeters. And it might have been that you were then so relaxed that just got you where you needed to be. There's no, I mean, we don't know what would have happened had you not have had it. And it might have been that you got to fully dilated just as quickly and were more sort of alert and sort of present in terms of pushing. But it might have been that was what's really relaxed your body and got you to where you needed to be a bit quicker. So it's really hard to know. But quite often what happens is pethidine you get given the pethidine and then things do progress quite quickly. So although people might hear that we don't want pethidine to be given too close to birth, if that happens to you, anyone watching, don't panic, because it quite often is the case that pethidine sort of, like I say, gives you that relaxed feeling, and then things sort of progress even quicker. So it's nothing to stress about if you've had pethidine and then you have a baby shortly afterwards. They just keep a closer eye on in terms of feeding and things like that. Baby might just be a bit sleepy, which I'm assuming Olivia probably was a little bit zonked.
She was not, to be honest. She came out screaming. She continued to scream until this day. So
She's still doing it now.
she is.
So anyway, back to, I don't want to miss the main event. So you were feeling very sleepy and a bit out of it, but pushing involuntary, did you have much guidance with that from a
Not really. My body, it was quite incredible actually, and I really wasn't expecting it, but my body just took over. And Pip speaks in a course about like your body knows what to do, like trust your body, and I echo that completely. I couldn't have stopped it even if I wanted. They gave me a little bit of coaching, and I think because of the pethidine, because I was so relaxed, they spoke at one point about an episiotomy. So they actually started that process. They actually started to give me the injections, but then she came really quite quickly. So they asked me, they took the gas and air off me, and they asked me just to, they sort of like coached me with my, I can't remember exactly what they did, but it was like that, like breathing out much slower rather than using the down breath that again is in Pip's course. That's another thing to mention. I use the breathing with the gas and air, so the up breath and the down breath, and that was super effective with pain relief as well.
Amazing. So we just needed at that stage to get that gas and air away and get you to sort of like concentrate on what you're doing. It's really hard because you're full of pethidine and obviously really enjoy the gas and air. So once they'd done that, you managed to get on and not have the episiotomy.
Yeah, exactly. And she was born again, like I'm blurry on timings, but she was born at 10 to 12. So I went into labour at 2:30 in the morning and started contracting. She was born by 10 to 12. And it was just amazing. It was, they plonked her straight on me, and I didn't actually share my birth preferences. Like I printed it out and took it, but they asked me all the questions anyway. They said they did delayed cord clamping as standard. Vitamin K injection, they asked me about that. So everything that was in my birthing preferences, they asked me whether I wanted it or not anyway. And also I asked for a warm compress, and they used that the whole time I was pushing, and that felt really lovely.
And that's the great thing, is that even so, we obviously really encourage you to take your birth preferences with you. But I think putting in all of the work that you do prior to birth through the course means that it's really cemented in your head as well, so that you can actually relay that information probably quite easily. But should you have any doubts, you've got it there. But with the right questions and the right prompting, for some people, they don't need to get it out because they've gone over it so many times that they're like, I know that I want this, and this. And that's kind of enough in that moment. You don't necessarily need to crack it out. And again, it's a bit like what we were saying about how you don't really know what you need until you're there, and things might change. It's a bit like that with the list of things that you kind of have in your mind that you really want. You kind of go through the bits that are important to you, and it might be that you're happy to let the other bits go, but ultimately the right questions mean that you know that you're going to get your delayed cord clamping, your skin to skin after birth, uninterrupted golden hour, those kind of things. And if you're not being asked those questions, then you know that you've got your birth preferences there to sort of show someone if you need to. But it sounds like you had really good care, and that they were kind of all over it in terms of making sure that you had what you wanted.
Yeah.
Really, really positive. And in terms of the aftermath, I know that you were on cloud nine, weren't you? You were so pleased with it.
Yeah.
It was a real like I've done it moment, wasn't it, for you?
It was, yeah, definitely. And just on the birth preferences as well, I made sure Ian knew everything that I wanted because I knew there might be a point in my birth where I wasn't able to advocate for myself. So even though they asked the right questions and they were fab, even if they weren't, Ian would have known to
Yeah.
ask for certain things. So yeah, afterward that yeah, they left us to it really. They did the delay core clamping, gave her the injection, passed her over to Ian, and then he sort of passed her back over to me again for the first feed. So actually it is a bit of a blur, but they helped a little bit with that. And then they just left us to it. They literally left the room for like an hour and a half and they said, we're just outside. If you need us, if you need any help, just press the call bell. But yeah, it was great. It was really, really nice as well just to have that time, just me and Ian and baby.
Yeah, amazing. And did you have any stitches or anything like that afterwards?
I did. I had a grade 2 pocket tear. So after the delayed cord clamping, after they cut the cord and everything,
Mm.
that's what they did. They gave baby to Ian and then stitched me up, and I didn't feel anything. I know they gave me more numbing like injections, but I'd been numbed anyway because I was going to have the episiotomy.
Mm.
Like I could feel the stitches a little bit, but it was completely painless.
One thing I do say to people is that if you are, because again, you hear stories about people being sutured, and ultimately, if people are saying to you, it was the worst bit or it's super painful, it's because you haven't got enough. It's called lidocaine. You haven't got enough on board. You need to ask for more. I
Yeah.
always say to my ladies, like, if it's uncomfortable, you need to tell me, and I can give you some more. It is literally the same. I didn't realize until I was a student midwife that it is the same as what you'd have if you had a filling. You don't want to feel, or if you have a tooth extracted, you don't want to feel that. So, that's you need to. It's the same stuff. It should feel, completely numb. So if it's uncomfortable, you just need to ask. And also for some people, they might have the gas and air back at that point, but that's just something of note because I think some people again might assume that this bit's going to be a bit uncomfortable, it's going to be painful. And it doesn't have to be, should you ask the right questions and make sure that you've got the right pain relief on board for that. But you found that absolutely fine, which is great.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you were home that day, the next day.
They were going to send me home that day. So they said about 2 hours after birth, there's no reason why we need to keep you in another night. We'll keep you on the labour ward and send you home from here. But then I had a little bit of difficulty feeding. So she just struggled to, and on reflection, I wonder if that might be pethidine. But she struggled to latch and I needed a bit of help. And they said, and I just couldn't feed her independently at that point. So they said, we do need to see you feed twice. So they said, they just said, why don't you stay in and get a bit of help overnight? So I did. And I'm somebody that I don't like to ask for help, really. I'm somebody that really keeps to myself. Like even with like YPJ, I've just like cracked on with the course and things like that, like behind the scenes. But I was pressing that call back. I asked the midwives to come in overnight and watch me feed, and they did. And in the end, they said, you're feeding fine. You just need to have a bit more confidence in yourself. So we were home by midday the following day.
Amazing. And postnatally, you've really leaned into the support from YPJ, haven't you? Which has been brilliant. It's exactly what we want in these stages, just to go over anything that you've got any concerns about. And how have you found that sort of experience postnatally?
I don't think I could have done it without it, to be honest. I have had pretty dodgy advice, I'd say, and every trust is different. So you might get an amazing sort of community midwife, but again, I've sort of had quite a bit of pressure to sort of do certain things. I don't mind sharing Olivia's birth. They've struggled to get a birth weight, her weight back up to birth weights. And Beck has been incredible. Obviously, you guys have been incredible as well in terms of supporting me with that. Because the advice that I have been received from my community care hasn't really been in line with evidence or guidance, unfortunately. And yeah, just asking any, I'm a first time mum, so there's so many things that I don't know, so many little questions that I have. And even if I've just had like a wobble or worries or concerns about certain things, I've just messaged and just had brilliant reassuring replies. So I'd really, really encourage anyone watching this to lean into hyper support as much as you can following birth, because it's just so helpful.
I feel like we've just been like your cheerleaders. We're just in the background, like, come on, you can do this. Like, it's
Yes.
normal. This is great. And again, I felt like that when I had Hallie, and it was not my first baby. And I'm a midwife, and, and I even found that super, super helpful, like just messaging Pip and Beck and, all the professionals along the way, just sort of like, guys, just, hear me out here, because we all have moments of doubt, don't we? And that's basically what we've been saying to you, is like, Laura, it's normal to doubt yourself. I've also doubted myself, but like just that reassurance, and getting the real guidance where you need it. And that's exactly what we want, you to do postnatally, especially because, it's not just you that we're sort of looking after and sort of supporting. It's you and baby, and you guys as a family unit. So super, super important. And like you said, I think it's made a huge difference. And I've loved as well seeing you grow and like advocate for yourself, like you said, with, like, I hope you don't mind me saying about the birth weight. You were
That's fine.
basically advised to like give top ups and things like that. And I remember just saying to you, like, Laura, like, you're advocating for yourself and Olivia amazingly well. You know what the right thing to do is. You know you've got the right support, and like your confidence has grown, so much so that you're like, I know what's best for me and baby, and this is what we're going to do. This is our plan. And I think that confidence has grown really from leaning into that support, hasn't it?
For sure, definitely. And I asked, I said she's having wet and dirty nappies really regularly. I knew all the things to ask when I asked about the growth curve, because Becca said she's following the growth curve and that's the most important thing. So I asked specifically about that, and they checked and they said, oh yeah, she is. I said, well, there we go then. No need for the stock feeds.
Absolutely amazing. I'm so, so pleased for you. And I just think your experience just really shows, how something that is completely out of your original preferences
Yeah,
and what you kind of envisaged can be so, so positive. And yeah, I just, hope that other people can take from your experience how amazing it can be. And you've come away with a super positive experience, and we're still
for
there
sure.
supporting you along the way. So I'm really, really chuffed. If
The other
anyone,
thing to mention,
yeah, go on.
so I was just going to mention one more thing. It's about around sort of like the exercise. So I think something that really helps, because my labour was quite intense, given the fact it's quite a short period. I think the exercise programme through YPJ really, really helped, and it's helping me postnatally massively as well. So I'd really, really encourage anyone that isn't sure about it just to give it a go, because I used it all the way up until 39 weeks, I think, and I picked it back up with the rehab afterwards, and it's been great.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is literally like you're training, aren't you, for
Yeah,
what is, quite a tough, robust time on your body. And you've, literally trained up and like ready to take on that marathon event like we talk about. And
yeah,
your recovery has been really, really great. And again, you're just, really productive and leaning into that program, and seeing the benefits of it, which is amazing. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to fire them away. But I know sometimes people are a bit quiet on the live, but if not, you're more than welcome to ping any questions the into the Facebook page, into the comments, and Laura will be happy to answer them, I'm sure. But thank you everyone for joining us. It's lovely to see you all, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to Laura's birth story, especially Vicky and Danielle waiting patiently and enjoying all things YPJ, hopefully. So thank you guys so much, and thank you Sophie and little one for joining us as well, having snuggles in the corner. Fab. Thank you so much, Laura. It's lovely to speak to you, and I know that lots of people will watch this back and get so much out of it, so I really, really appreciate you sharing such a lovely positive induction story. It's amazing.
no problem. That's okay.
Thank you guys so much. and we will speak to you soon. Thank you, Laura. Thanks, everyone.
No problem.
Bye. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
If you have listened to this birth story, enjoyed it, and feel that you are ready to really embrace and dedicate yourself to having the most informed, supported, and empowered journey, and want to see if we may be able to support you in YPJ, your pregnancy and postnatal journey, please drop me a Instagram DM at midwife_pip or get in touch on my email, pip@midwifepip.com, and let's chat through things and see if we might be a good match for each other. I hope you've enjoyed listening and wishing you all the best on your journey through pregnancy, birth, and beyond.